We have two speakers this morning. Lucky us. Hey, Jane Hill and Cathy Abernathy are both speaking to us this morning. Jane has been a UU for more than 50 years. She's a retired physical therapist. 45 years, Jane? Woo! And a retired yoga instructor of 30 years. Cathy became a UU in 1981, both long-time UU, when she and her husband Randy joined the Allen Avenue UU Church in Portland, Maine. I think I know where that is. Both she and her husband are retired psychologists who moved here to be part of the Elder Spirit community. However, she's not a stranger to this area as she grew up in Richlands and still has connections to friends in the area and family nearby. She and Randy joined our church last year. So they are speaking today about the 2021 UUA General Assembly. The theme was Circle Round for Justice, Healing, and Courage. Do y'all want me to read all the other info too? No? Okay. I'll let you speak to it then. All right, take it away.
We'll cover it. I'm going to go first with just an introduction and a report of the business meeting stuff, and then Jane's, and a little bit more music, and then Jane's going to follow talking about the workshops. Jane and I both attended General Assembly this year, what I call the UU Annual Convention. I was your delegate, and Jane came as a participant. Can I ask, has anybody else, I know Molly, you have tons. Has anybody else been to a General Assembly here? So let me give you a little bit of an introduction to it. I know Molly has, because Molly worked also for UU Church for many years. It's a magical, just wonderful experience of UU seminars, workshops, music, worship services, and yeah, some business meetings. It's a 5-day event running usually from Wednesday to Sunday. Traditional parts include a banner parade on Wednesday's opening ceremony, and I have carried the banner for another church on another GA. If I had realized it, I could have done our banner, but I didn't realize it in time. And that's on Wednesday's opening ceremony, because that shows banners from a lot of the different congregations that people come from. And it's just amazing to see several hundred banners go by and figure out where all the churches are. There's a Thursday night service honoring our professional ministers and people who work for churches. A Friday bridging service that honors youth transitioning from youth services to young adult status. And probably what may be the best part, or one of the most famous parts, Saturday evening's WARE lecture. WARE lecture, with only 2 exceptions, has been an annual event since 1922. And past speakers have included Jane Addams in 1931, Linus Pauling in 1964, Martin Luther King in 1966, and May Sarton in 1982, along with many, many others. I was lucky enough to see Brian Stevenson in 2017 at the Columbus GA. He's the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative. And also at that same conference, although now the WARE lecture, was Reverend William Barber, both fantastic. This year's speakers were Stacey Abrams and Desmond Meade. And that video is still online, and I will post the link to that shortly in chat. Everything wraps up on the closing service, worship service on Sundays, and a final business meeting. There is music everywhere, lots of it, and collections for good causes, of course. This year they had 4 causes that they spotlighted, and that's more than they usually do. And there's always at least one local organization. All in all, it's a wonderful time. Yes, there are daily business meetings where the business of the organization is conducted. Delegates are the only ones who can vote and offer amendments to motions on everything big and small, but anyone can attend, and you can attend any part of it. Someone said, I read, business meetings can be messy and exasperating, but this is such is democracy. And I think we're seeing that now in many ways. GA was held virtually this year for the 2nd straight year. But hybrid attendance has been an option for a while, where some people would meet in person and some people would meet online. This was my 6th GA attending in part or whole. And I think both in-person attendance and online attendance have its advantages. In person, there is just nothing like being in a room with all the UUs. That's the favoriteest part of it for me, that there were 4,000 this year. Well, and then online, I'll talk about that in a second. Let me come back to that. Hold on. Most of us know we're in a smaller denomination, and a lot of places don't even have a UU church. But at this year's General Assembly, there were 4,224 registrants. 4,224. You can imagine UUs not only from all across the United States, but frankly, all around the world. It was just wonderful. Of that, 2,278 were delegates, representing 656 congregations. Every congregation is assigned a certain number of delegate slots. I think we have 3, 2 delegates, and then as an opening for an RE professional. And I started to say, when you go to the in-person, it's just wonderful to be part of a large hall with other hundreds of thousands of other UUs, and online, it was just incredible. If you've never attended one, I'd ask you to really consider doing it next year, either as a delegate or a participant. There is a registration fee, but it is so worth it. And for people who need financial help, there are also some scholarships and volunteer opportunities. Advantages of online are you get to sleep in your own bed at night. And as someone said, I can run out to the garden and pick a tomato for lunch and still watch the services. They really tried harder this year to promote interaction among registrants, and they had a new app that was used to you would go, you got your registrant credential, you'd go online and you could watch the videos on that, but you could also hook up in smaller groups with other UUs around a lot of different topics. And if there was anything you wanted to meet other UUs involved with, there was a group for that. And that there were, I don't know how many groups, but there were a ton. It was really wonderful. So as your delegate, which I asked Wave if I could be, I wanted to summarize the results of the business meeting here. At first, I have to give credit to a UU World article that some of you may have read by Elaine McCardle and Sonia Cohen, summarizing the results. To be honest, it's just been a few months, and I had to refresh my memory. To me, there were 2 major focuses on this particular General Assembly: marginalized communities, which is always a traditional focus, I think, and the effects of the COVID pandemic. Delegates at each General Assembly have an opportunity to take positions on issues that require immediate witness through the action of immediate witness process. That's something that is gotten up at the General Assembly, and they get signatures and enough people promote it. It's presented to the whole delegation for voting. And AIW expresses the conscience and carries the authority of the delegates at the GA at which it is passed. And there were 3 actions of immediate witness adopted: stop voter suppression, and partner for voting rights and a multiracial democracy. And I brought up the wrong one, so let me come back, because this is there. It asks people to get involved with UU campaigns such as UU the Vote and organizations, Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice, and their partners to deepen our theological grounding on issues of democracy and take action to combat voter suppression and other anti-democracy efforts, including those efforts by state legislatures. And you can see it's a kind of a long thing. UU the Vote, if you have, I think I've mentioned that because I did that this year, is one that encourages people to write letters, not promoting one or the other, but to write letters to voters in states that are, there's a target of focus, just asking them to get out the vote and sharing with them why you think voting is important. They are very strong that you are not to take a position on either side, but merely to get out, to encourage people to get out their vote. And I sent out 45 letters this year for that. So would encourage people to think about that. A second AIW encourages people to support those who are trans and And I'm going to share the screen for that. Defend and advocate with transgender, non-binary, and intersex communities, to support those who are trans, non-binary, intersex, engage in diversity training, and to continue to develop in beloved community. And it looks at the issues that have been calling, that trans people have had to go through, other binary. And I think one step that this was a question in June to issue an executive order that ensures access to an X marker and removes medical requirements. And I think they are beginning to do that on passports these days, which is really nice. And the third action of immediate witness was on the pandemic. It affirms our support for healthcare systems that are equitable and accessible for all. I think one of the things we've really been hearing about on this pandemic is how there are many lower income communities that don't have access to good healthcare. And it also expresses our thanks to healthcare workers. There was a lot of recognition of the pain and grieving and loss that so many people nationally have gone through with all of this, and so, and especially on our congregations and how it's affected us. The other kind of thing that gets focused on is a community study or action issue selected by Unitarian Universalist member congregations for 3 years of studies, reflection, and action. And in the third year of this process, delegates at GA can vote to approve a statement of conscience. And pull that up. And this was the third year, and it was passed to approve the SOC Undoing Systemic White Supremacy, a Call to Prophetic Action. It asks us to work to heal racism, including our relationships with BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color UUs. I don't know how many people realized we had a huge rift back, I believe it was in the 80s. There was a commitment made by the UUA to fund, give money for Black UUs, and then we reneged. We ran out of money because there were some financial issues going on. And that really hit, and it's something, even though I was around at the time, I didn't really hear that much about. But it has really had a huge effect on how many Black people have been joining UU. It also helps us to asks us to build relationships across boundaries of privilege and oppression with groups engaged in this healing racism work, such as Black Lives Matter and Poor People's Campaign. So I would ask, I'll post, as when Jane is talking, I'll post some things in chat. Would ask that you read the statement of conscience and the AIWs in detail, and ask that we look as a congregation about how we could implement them. There will not be a statement of conscience for next year's GA, as it was decided that congregations are already dealing so much with issues related to social justice and the effects of the pandemic, but actions of immediate witness will still be allowed. There were 2 responsive resolutions adopted that asked proposed changes in Article 2, including the principles, a clear and direct statement that accountable, systemic, anti-racist, and anti-oppressive actions to build beloved community are part of what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. Let me read that again. Accountable, systemic, anti-racist, and anti-oppressive actions to build beloved community are part of what it means to be a UU. Again, I would ask that we want to look at how we can develop that as in this congregation. Another resolution asked that the UUA Common Endowment Fund, do people know about that? That's a fund where different congregations put money into a large pool, and it is used to invest in different stocks and bonds and or other businesses, and the dividends from that are passed on to back to the congregations. It asks that the endowment fund divest from fossil fuels, pipelines, and institutions that invest in them. and requested that young adults be involved in related discussions. And both of those resolutions passed. Let's see, there were several bylaws amendments, almost done, guys. I know business is not fun, but it's important. Amendment 1 allows AIWs to be submitted via online means rather than in person. Before, it's been required that people actually had to be present, and we're realizing that's just not feasible. Amendment 2 allows deadlines to shorten election campaigns for UUA moderator and president. And Amendment 4 allows a newly elected UUA president to take office up to 45 days after being elected rather than immediately, to allow that person time to transition from whatever position they are currently holding and make the move to Boston. Amendment 5 allows delegates, and this is important, to register, speak at, and vote at GA without paying a registration fee. So that's why I'm asking, if you're thinking about being a delegate, next year might be a good time to do it. And Amendment 6 increases flexibility in RE credentialing. All of those amendments passed. So they're now working on a process to allow delegates that if all they're doing is attending business meetings and voting, that they can do that without registering. It doesn't allow them to attend the workshops, and for that you do need to register. Amendment 3, which would allow a presidential search committee to nominate a single candidate for UUA president, was not passed. People really want to have choices. In addition, Reverend Sam Trumbore won a contested race for the Board of Trustees, while other trustee members were elected unopposed. Several people and organizations were honored, including the previous moderators. Moderators are people that run the meeting, and you might not think that that's a very difficult job, but let me tell you, herding a group of cats known as 2,000 UUA delegates takes a lot of skill. And it's not just a GA job. This is something that goes on all year. They also are involved with the Board of Trustees meetings, and they're involved in many other activities. So we honored the people who had just stepped down as moderators. And we also honor the Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Committee. They really had a focus this year on increasing online user interactions. And I think all in all was a very successful UUA. When I can afford to go to an in-person UUA, I will, because there is really nothing like being physically present with others. But it is expensive, and I've attended 2 UUAs completely in person. I realized the second one probably cost me, with airfare, hotel, etc., about $3,000, and I just couldn't afford to do that again. So online is a great option, and I've done it even before these past 2 years. It's really good. The next GA will be in Portland, Oregon on June 22nd to 26th. And again, it's going to be hybrid. They're hoping to have some in person, but they're also going to have some on Zoom. They have a pretty good technical crew on that. So we're going to have a Q&A at the end on that. And meanwhile, I'm going to share one more shorter song from Heather. And then Jane's going to talk about her experience with the workshops.
With this life I am living in a world that's wild and free, and with this voice I am speaking my truth with clarity, and with this heart I am loving what once was and what will be, and with this life I am living both with joy and dignity. With this life I am living in a world that's wild and free, and with this voice I am speaking my truth with clarity, and with this heart I am loving what once was and what will be. this life I am living, both with joy and dignity.
Turning it over to Jane.
Okay, thank you, Cathy, and thank you for sharing that music. And just a tip now, so I don't forget, I encourage you to go type in uua.org General Assembly 2021 or go on YouTube, and they have selected certain songs with the video. The virtual choirs that they did was incredible. So I just go on YouTube, UUA General Assembly 21, and you'll see some of this. It's wonderful and it's surprising. I'm watching the time. I will be fairly brief. I had a different purpose than did Cathy for General Assembly. I've been to one virtual, I'm one in person in Charlotte with Molly, and Molly helped me find my way. So I appreciate that. She's very experienced in attendance. This was it was a challenge to do a 5-day Zoom on a meeting. Cathy asked me if I wanted to be a delegate, that we had to, and I said, no, thank you. I don't want to go to meetings. Thank you so much, Cathy, for doing that. What I set a different purpose. All of us have been to meetings. I set a different purpose. First of all, if I was going to do 5 days, some of the hours, got my mindset, nothing done in Abingdon during that time, except what we needed done. I don't know if I told Cathy, but I wanted to be free range to explore whatever was happening, finding out, learning about things and people that I did not know. So I was sort of like you've been a farmer, a free range chicken, just walking around the barnyard, finding out what I would run into. That I did. But if you ever go to General Assembly, you can see this little colored sheet. They do things in blocks of time, and they have an orientation on, at least on this Zoom, for how to get through this maze of many workshops. There were 70 webinar online and about 40 workshops, and then chat rooms and networking and a fun night, yada, yada. So they sent us all an app. I didn't know if I could use it, but if I learned to use it, anybody can. It was wonderful. You do have to study the program, because with so many choices, you end up missing what you intended to see. And the workshops in blocks of time, there would be 4 or 5 at the same time. You've done this before. You'd be wanting to go to 2 or 3 of them, and they're all at the same time. So anyway, it requires planning. But a couple of highlights so that you get the feel for this. This is in person as well as on Zoom. To start the day and the Eastern, this is also occurring in 4 different time zones. So you have to make sure you're at the right hour. I missed some things because I was either an hour late or an hour early, but you got used to translating it to our time, Eastern Standard Time, or daylight at that time. But the day starts with a grounding. And Cathy, can you put in the chat or the link where you sent me the workshops, because the grounding, it's called Daily Devotions, is in that group. If you can put up somehow, send us those links if it's available, okay? If you can. But I'm sorry.
I put it up in chat.
Okay, thank you. But each day starts with a 30 to 45 minute grounding. All of you are used to this. Some of it was breathing, some of it was the Tibetan singing bowls, some of it was affirmations, but it was cool to do it on Zoom with someone leading. So there were 3 days of that. I attended opening and closing celebrations. I didn't do much networking. My goal was to sit back, observe as a witness with non-judgment in whatever I found myself in. So to give you an idea, the program book itself was 108 pages long. So let me give you a couple of examples of what you have choices to do. Organizing the UU vote, which has already been mentioned, summer solstice celebration, skills for resilience in this time of trauma. Oh, here's one that I didn't get into, but I found it quite interesting. The UU Christian Fellowship Communion. And the title of the service, get ready for this one, was Pentecostal Unitarianism. That one is just like, say what? I didn't make it to that one. But another one, for white men who want collective liberation. Didn't make it to that one either. But one that I want to mention to you just briefly, if you are able to, and this is in that list on that link. I found when Cathy said, help me out with this, I thought I had a lot of notes, but I found, have you ever given a book report and can't even find the book? Well, I found my notes were very sparse. What I ended up was listening to a lot of music. And one of the workshops was a journey through America by way of the Negro spiritual. What a profound experience. It was an hour and a half. It's in that series of workshops. It is gorgeous music, but they'll break away and tell the history in the 1500s, as far as we know, the arrival of Blacks from Africa. And we don't have a good estimate anywhere in our history from 11 million to 20 million people from various countries came here as slaves. So it tells the story through Negro spirituals. Very powerful workshop, very powerful. One of the fun things that I did, I always at conventions enjoy exhibit hall. Well, they have a virtual exhibit hall. Just to give you an idea, the UU minister programs were recruiting Harvard Divinity School, Star King, Red Winds Councils, UU Mental Health Network, UU Spokesman for the Earth, which I'll talk to you more about, UU Women's Federation for Collective Liberation, the UU Humanists. So there were all kinds of people in prepared vignettes exposing you to certain things. What I found was anybody could have walked in. And that's one thing I like about UU. Our chalice is very large. We have a broad support. People can come together and be who they want to be, and then find people to connect to should they want. Here's one I'd never heard of. In the exhibit hall, the UU Hysterical Society. And I thought, what is that? And it's talking about finding dignity through laughter and mirth. And it's funny content with a UU message. So the UU Hysterical Society, that was something new. There were exhibits about the prison ministry. There was a fun night. I'm messed up. Here's to show you the diversity of fun night. Game night was there, a Sabbat service, Pride drag show, which is I understand a regular, and music night with the Brown Mountain Lightning Bugs. So you could choose even on fun night, Friday night, what you wanted to do. As with Cathy, the excitement for me, both in person and on Zoom, was, and particularly on Zoom, it was like able to find similarities with people you had never met, ever. And yet, within this chalice of UU, the 7 principles hold it together. And compassion, which we see in, of course, principles like this in other religions, but our faith allows a lot of different approaches. So the one workshop I just want to touch on briefly, and is this. One other one I will mention, there was something called dinner church. Person from the Catholic faith really liked what was called dinner church in the Catholic faith, coming together to share a meal and ending with communion, the traditional communion. As she became a UU and a UU minister, how do we adapt? Well, the long story of this whole workshop is our potlucks fit right in. Coming together over food, particularly when we share, we bring our part of that common meal, we come together as a family. And hopefully when we can get back together, we'll be able to do our potlucks and our whatever again. But I never thought of it as dinner church. But the workshop that I just want to briefly touch on was Who Speaks for the Earth? And this was a workshop completely presented by Indigenous people. And the intro, the moderator said, please, you use listen. Turn off your chat button. Make sure you're muted. Enter to listen. Those who can speak best for the earth are those that see the earth as sacred. This is a workshop completely conducted by Indigenous people. The person I will quote a little bit from, her name is Cathy, and she's from the Ponca Nation, Ponca, which I didn't know of that nation, Central Oklahoma. And in speaking of life, she, of course, this workshop probably relates to my current state of spirituality, seeing nature as a manifestation or as that which people call God. Cathy talked about we are among the sacred with every breath. Breath is sacred. And of course, that ties in with all those years of yoga that I did, that enters into silent space and communion with the world. But Cathy, Native American, said, please remember, we're here but a brief time. We are guests upon this earth. The body that we now wear is simply the robe placed over our eternal spirit. That which is sacred, we see every day. It directs us toward our activism as people upon this earth. That which is sacred is clean air, clean water, clean food. And listen, if we listen, we hear when these things are in trouble. Learn to listen. Listen to the tree beside you that breathes in and breathes out. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, just as us. Listen to that little creek, to that river, to that ocean wave. It is the earth speaking. Listen. Be constructive upon this earth, not destructive, as we human beings currently are. Because realize, human beings aren't necessary. That tree exists in spite of every human being upon this earth. The earth has breathed, it has changed, it has gone through destruction and reconstruction. We are the temporary ones. We must listen. The earth will, in fact, teach us. So be. And in ending, there were multiple people on this panel who spoke, but one of the activists in one of the Native American lands where the pipeline is attempting to be built, he was quite active in that. He said, no one is listening. Corporations must learn to listen. We were not asked if our river could be polluted where we fish. And he closed with, and I will close with something that he chose from the diary, daily diary of Columbus. There were workshops on colonialism. There were workshops on what it is to be white, recognizing our white privilege, many things that we're used to. We haven't gotten down to the roots of it yet. But the daily entry, when Columbus first, and I don't remember the name of the island, ran into the first land piece, an island, the entry, after he got off the ship, the entry into his log that day was many natives, good slaves, many trees, good boards for ships. This simple entry seems to state the contrast of destruction of that, which is our mother, looking at it from the Native American perspective, the mother, the earth. I enjoyed going. I enjoyed free ranging. I met a lot of nice people, and I tried not to judge what I was hearing. So thanks. I'm glad I'm a UU, and I'm glad you're here.